In this video, I'm going to go through the process of connecting VSCode with our Docker container. And to this point, I've assumed that you've successfully installed Docker container and that you have run the script in step 2. But we're also going to go through the process of making sure that your course container is running. You'll need to do this every single time when you start up, whether you're doing the in-class coding or you are running the code for your assignments. So when you open your Docker, this is what you'll see in the Learning Center. You select containers. If you've got to this point, that means it's successfully running. There's 2 different ways. You could either select this button here, make it really simple, or you can select container, which I want you to do because we're going to eventually need this terminal here. So select that and then press start. And now our Docker is running. I'm going to assume that you have downloaded VS Code and successfully run the executable. So here I've opened it, we've installed it, but nothing has been done. The first thing you need to do is go for the extensions, and then we're going to install 3 different extensions that are free and available and allow you to connect with the Docker. So that is over here on the left. Here's the extensions. See, if I hover over with the mouse, it'll say extensions, and I click on it. You see we have tons of extensions, and in fact, all the 3 that I'm going to search for have shown up, but I'm going to assume that they don't show up under recommended. So the first one I'm going to say is Docker. I'm going to type it in and click install. It installs very fast. The second one here is dev containers. Let it run for a second. Click install, and now it's installed. The third one is the Windows subsystem for Linux. Let's run that, WSL. And now we click install. Now all of them are installed, so you can close out of this, and we would go back here, so it's allow us to start again. The next step is we have to click the blue button on the bottom left of VS Code, and that button is here. And so the first thing you do is you make sure it's open, and then you select it, and it's going to give you a pull-down menu. The one that you're going to select is called Attached to Running Container. Select it, and when you do that, it's going to pull up the container that we're running. So you see CSE 20133 container. That's the same container here that we're running. So let me select that again, Attached to Running Container. We select that. And now it's going to open it up in a new window. The first time you do it, start the dev container, so it's going to take a moment in order to be able to open. But notice here we have CSE 20133-user. That was what was created earlier when we ran the setup. So if we do C and users, more I22, and remember we created CSE 20133. When we had this running, so if I type in clear, remember I had that C users MMO or I22? That's the exact same thing that's going on here. And then in the installation, we created CSE 20133. Now notice so it says git docker home, and we'll get to that git in a moment, but notice here it says docker home CSE 20133 run Docker and README. If I open this, we see CSE 20133 user. We have demo.txt. This is a little different. So what's going on here? Well, let me give you a hint. If I click on home, look at that. There's bash history and demo.txt, just like we have here. Now this SSH, you'll see what this is in a moment when we deal with Git. But the big thing is, notice how demo.txt is empty. And if I click here, I just use Notepad, that's fine for now. It's also empty. So what is actually going on? Let me compare what's going on inside the container versus what's going on in the entire computer. So I'm going to use this purple to represent the entire computer. And we have C and we'll say users. And in my case, we have MMRI22, and then we had the CSE 20133. And that is here. So in Docker, that's where we had that build Docker that you ran in order to be able to install the Docker in the first place. So we have two different folders, Docker and home, and I'm going to draw those out. And we have Docker and home. And then Docker, we have the, I'll see C-R-D for CSE 2033 run Docker. And then README, big R. If I click on home, we have demo. And so let me, to make this even clearer, I'm going to say in blue, we'll say C-R-D and then uppercase README. And then home, we have demo. So the files are in blue and the folders are in purple. And if we go here, we have this Docker and home. And in here, we have CSE 20133 user and we have demo. So how do we differentiate? Well, I'm going to put what's inside the container in green. When I do the container, that takes us directly here. So anything that I make a change here is going to be modified using Ubuntu. Whereas here, in this case, I'm using Windows, but you might be doing a Mac or Ubuntu here. But this is using the specific Ubuntu with the programs that we install here in home. And the way that it recognizes it is with CSE 20133-user. That corresponds to this. So this is the container that we do all our changes in. Everything outside of that is not modified by the different operating system. So it's a security thing. So let's see what happens when we make specific changes. Well, if I connect this and I attach to running container, we connect that, here we are, and I open demo.txt. Now I'm just going to, let me close out there. No, I have that notepad. I say edit with Notepad++. I'm going to say, good morning. And if I press save, here's the interesting thing. I'm going to save it, but it's going to be in that box that can be accessed by both operating systems. So when I come back, guess what's going to happen? You're going to see, good morning. Likewise, if I go to terminal, we're going to start doing these vim commands in a moment, but this will allow us to be able to update it through vim. So let's actually start that. So notice here that I say in Docker desktop, select the container. In these notes, I go in this whole deal about how we're going to install programs through Docker desktop terminal and not through VSCode, because if we install programs through here, the moment we click X, they'll go away. We don't want that. So the way you do this is you go into the container, which we're already in, and you select the terminal. If you are doing this, you do WSL, clear, and we are now going to run this first command, sudo apt get update. This allows us to update our system with the most recent copy of programs in the event that our installation didn't get the most recent updates for Ubuntu. And we see that it's now going to perform all these tasks. It's installing everything. And this can take a moment, but We want this because this allows us to have all the appropriate dependencies. Next, we're going to say sudo apt-get vim install vim. This will install vim specifically. So we go back here. Now I'm just going to paste again, sudo apt-get install vim. And I have the direction written. If you get any of this, do you want to continue? Select yes and allow it to be able to do its work. And now we have vim installed. And the good thing here is that I say which vim, it now says user bin vim. That means we have successfully installed it inside the container and our Visual Studio Code is recognizing it. Another good command that you can use is clear, and that will get rid of the previous command so you can just see what's going on there. So now we can perform the command vim demo.txt. So let me get out here. We have to make sure that we're opening the correct ones. If I type ls, we see that we have CSE20133 user. That gets us in here. So we're going to do cd CSE20133-user. And then if I type ls, we see that we are opening demo.txt. So the issue that I had here is that I was one up in home. I needed to go down into CSE133 user, and that allowed me to have access to demo. Now, if I type vim demo.txt, look at that, there it is, good morning. Now, how does this work? So we have demo.txt, which is what you see here. Now, what you're seeing here isn't actually demo.txt. What you're seeing here is this demo text.swap. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make some edits here. When I see here that it says type the letter I in order to insert text into the file. So if I go back here to VSCode, if I type I, notice in the bottom left of the terminal, it's going to change to uppercase insert, and that will allow me to make some changes. And I think I have a little sentence here that I included. We are going to type in here into VSCode, welcome back to Notre Dame. Best of luck. CSE 20133/20232 students. Now, when I do this, we still have two different versions of the file because good morning is demo.txt and welcome back to Notre Dame is the swap. So how do we make sure that we fix this and resolve this discrepancy? The way we do this is we are going to type escape to stop the insertion, and then you're going to see insert disappear. So if I do this, and on the keyboard I type escape, notice how the insert disappeared. So that's the first step. The next step here is you'll begin the process of saving and quitting. You're going to hold shift and then tap the colon button and then release both at the same time. And you're going to see the colon with a flashing cursor at the bottom. So here's how this works. So here I'm going to hold shift, tap colon, and then release both. And we see that we have our cursor and colon. In order to write and save, we're going to use write quit exclamation point. And then what's going to happen is that everything that's in demo swap.txt is going to be updated. Demo swap is going to go away. And then what you see is that this is going to be updated here. So we select that, we do WQ exclamation point, and then when I press enter, the terminal is going to go back to where we navigate the file hierarchy in the actual terminal. Demo text.swap that's going to be gone. And then what I have here is actually going to be automatically updated here. So I'm going to press enter, and we see that that's exactly what happened. The other direction I have for you is to do ls-l, and we see here that what I put in is now 67 characters, and we've updated this. And we say, welcome back to Notre Dame. What I can do is I can go in this demo.txt, and I can say, go Irish. And this week, the first week, we're playing Navy, beat Navy. And you go to File and Save, and it's automatically updated. So notice here, if I go back to where I had it open in Notepad, I click yes, and all the changes that I made through VS Code and Vim are now visible here. I'm going to close out of this. And if I type in vim demo.txt, well, all the changes that I made up here are now visible in Vim. If I just want to quit out of Vim and not write anything, it's just Q exclamation point. So this last set of steps, we want to practice closing and opening Docker and VS Code. So we're going to go through this step one more time. So I close out of VS Code, it's gone. In Docker Desktop, we need to go to the container, and we're going to press the stop button. And the reason why is because Docker uses computing resources. We can respect the computing resources on your machine. It won't consume a ton of power while you're doing everything that you need to do for your other classes or for your course activities or personal activities. Next, you can close it out. You can just say, all right, I am done with VS Code. I am done with Docker Desktop, and we're good. If you want to open it, you're going to first open Docker Desktop. And then you might open in Learning Center. If you open in containers, we see you have the container here. In this case, you can either open it and click on Start like we did before. If I go to Learning Center and Containers, or you can just press the Start button and it's running just fine. In the second one, you got to do VS Code. You got to do the bottom left here. Do VS Code. Here's Visual Studio Code. We go to the bottom left, attach to running container, CSC 2013 container, and give it a moment to open, starting the dev container. Maximize it, and we can see that everything that we've done here has been preserved. And that is the end of step 3.